Sean Terry here, Flip2Freedom. All right, I got a bunch of questions that were sent from yesterday, so I thought I'd get on here and answer them. All right, so here's the question. How long does it take for the average buyer to sign the moment you send them the contract? So when we're talking to buyers, the important thing about talking to buyers is creating an urgency with those buyers. So remember, they don't know what's going on your side of the on your side of the phone. So when you're actually talking to a buyer, we're doing something incredibly important. We are selling the property, right? Now that's where sales takes into an account. Yes, you can put your deals on the MLS if you have. Make sure you have verbiage in your contract, and you do that. So, how do you get closer to God? Read the Bible every single day and spend some time with Him every single day. If you wake up in the morning, spend at least an hour, even a half hour, praying and reading the Bible, then you'll get closer to Him. Yeah, we're gonna do interesting. We're actually, and I've done that in the past at Extreme Freedom. We've actually had people call and get contracts, so that'd be pretty interesting. Having a whole entire group of people. Depends how many people's there actually to be able to do that. So let's talk about buyers and how to sell a property. And it's what you say and the inflection in your voice is going to get the seller, the buyer, excited on the other line. So when we're talking to buyers, we're selling something. We're selling the property, which is incredibly important. So on the other side, the buyer is calling in and they're saying, hey, is the property at 1234 Main Street still available? How you respond is absolutely critical. Your mission is to get their heart to skip. It's to get their, to literally, if they're sitting down, you want them standing up. If they're calling in, you want to get them emotionally juiced and charged to be able to go run down to the property and be able to get that deal. So what happens is when a buyer calls in, they're calling on a property. First off, you have to up your ante in your voice. You're gonna say, hey, listen, yeah, buyer's still available. Man, my phone's blowing. Okay, hey, can you hold on 1 second? Put him on hold for a second. Oh, sorry, I got my line keeps calling in on his deal. Yeah, so it's a 3-bed, it's a 2-bath. Thing's worth about $250. We're selling it for $175 right now. It's a super hot area. A lot of pending sales in the area. Properties are going for under 30 days or less. And hold on 1 sec. Boom. And then boom. All right, guy. Sorry, man. My phone's blowing up with this thing. So I currently have it on lockbox right now, or I can meet you down there if you want. But more than likely, the property is going to be gone by the end of the day today. So if you want it, I jump on it right now. So what happens is you're creating an urgency with this buyer to jump on it. So to answer this question, it says, how long does it take for an average buyer to sign the moment you send them the contract? It depends on what your inflection, what the excitement, what the urgency, what you're doing on your side that's going to determine how fast they sign. Typically, when I'm talking to a buyer and I'm creating that frenzy, that urgency, that, oh my gosh, it's going crazy, even if you've never got a call before. So imagine this. Imagine you put your property out and there's crickets. Nobody's calling. You got nothing going on. Finally, you got one buyer that calls in, right? How you act is critical on how that is going to make that buyer jump. They don't know it's crickets. They don't know no one else is calling. They don't know that you're sitting there freaking out on the other side going, holy cow, I don't know if I'm going to sell this property. They don't know that, right? So it's important for you to understand that on that side, you have to create the perception as if it's blowing up. Your phone is blowing up with that property. And here's what will make a buyer's decision is they don't want to lose the property to somebody else. Remember that. That is absolutely critical. They do not want to lose the property to somebody else. So you have a buyer, a cash buyer, that's calling you on a property. The urgency you create, the demand that you create, the excitement that you create on that property is critical because they don't want to lose that deal, right? They don't want to lose that deal. So the question becomes, how are you How are you, when a buyer calls in, even if nothing's going on, how are you responding to that buyer? That's critical, right? Because, hello. Because how you respond to it is going to make a difference on if you sell that property or not. I don't care. I put properties out before. What has the most motivation, or is there a motivation in every list? Good question. And I'll tell you what happens if I have put a property up before. But so there's basically essentially distressed lists, right? Distressed lists. And you got distress, you got pre-foreclosure, you got property tax default where they haven't paid their property taxes, you got probate, you got inheritance, you got vacant properties, you got code violations. Those are all distress. If you're brand new, that's where you want to start. That's where you want to start when you're up and going. And start focusing on those. You want to start initially with pre-foreclosure. Start with pre-foreclosure and move into that. So anyways, I put a property up before from a buyer side, and I had no calls coming in, nothing going on. Finally, I got someone calling in, and in that urgency that you create, that like you, whether you have nothing going on or not, makes a huge difference. So let me see if I can get another question here. Oh, there was a good question on where was that question on JV? You guys know how to do JV deals? JV deals are awesome. Someone asked a question on a JV deal I want to talk about. So here's back to that question. What's the best list to target? Everybody asked that. And I'll talk about JV. So the best list, when you're starting out, you got to look at the lists that you target in two different buckets. You have a distress bucket, and picture like a pond. We're fishing in a pond. We're going out fishing, and you and I are going fishing in these ponds. You can fish in a pond of distress, or you can fish in a pond of non-distress, right? If you fish in the pond of distress, you know that every single fish that bites, every single fish you get on the hook is going to be distressed. That means every caller, every seller that calls in, every person that calls, whether their story, and they're telling you a story, they want retail, or there's nothing going on, or they're not even talking about, you know that there's distress no matter what because of the pond you're fishing in, right? You know that they're all distressed. So that's number one. Number two is that non-distress. That is owner occupants and non-owner occupied. Now we target that list of non-distress, and now we're hoping to find distress. So we want to narrow that list down as much as possible on knowing exactly what buyers are buying, number one, and what our perfect property avatar is. So, and I'll talk about JV here in a quick because I think it's important. So the bottom line is that when we're targeting distress, let me tell you the list of distress. I think I just told you. We've got pre-foreclosure, right? You can get from flipmorehouses.com. You've got property tax default, right? They haven't paid their property taxes. I get those from rebogateway.com. Inheritance and probate list you get from successordata.com, Successor Data. You get vacant properties from flipmorehouses.com. At Flip More House, you can watch the demo there. And then you can get code violations. If you look at my previous story, I gave you an email address of this guy named Octoon who sends us our code violations every single day. Now, someone also asked for a water shutoff list. I don't have a water shutoff list, but ask that Octoon guy to see if he does do water shutoff. All right, so that's the distressed. And people go, where do I start first? Start with pre-foreclosure and then move into all the distress. You should be mailing your distress list, cold calling your distress list, RVMing your distress list, voice broadcast, doing all the texting that distress list. And that should be 100% focused surrounding those distress lists until your marketing budget exceeds all that, right? Then you move into non-distress, right? So we target all of the distress lists. and we direct mail them with a postcard, we RVM them, we voice broadcast them, we text them, and we cold call them. We do all the above with the distress list. Then obviously our budget exceeds the amount of what we're doing, then we move in. So it's budget dictated, right? If you want to know what your marketing budget should be, it should be 15% minimum up to 25% max. 25% is highly aggressive. 15% should be minimum that you reinvest back into marketing to create growth in your business, right? So that's your marketing budget. Now, the non-distress list is owner, occupant, and absentee owners. Those lists you target, you want to target the, and we call it the perfect property avatar. So we went into all the deals we made over $20,000 on. In those deals, we went out and found the year built, the bed and bath, the square footage, and the zip code those properties were in. And then what we did is put a 10-year ownership to make sure that they had equity in the property. So once you do that, then you can surround that list similarly like you do with your distress list. That will go out and get you some deals. Now let's talk about JV, the right way to do a joint venture. So let's say you have a property and I want to sell it, right? You have a property and I want to sell it, and I'm going to sell it to my buyers list. That's a JV. You did the marketing, you had the property under contract, it's your deal, and I want to sell your deal. What we're going to do. So first off, I want to get a option on the property. It's a non-exclusive 15-day option. And it's going to be an option, whatever strike price you want to sell your property for, right? So if you want to sell your property for $100,000, you give me anything above and beyond $100,000, that could be a deal. So if I sell it for $120,000, then I get $20,000 and you get the balance. Or you can do a JV structure where it's a 50-50 split on that particular deal. We do a 50-50 split. So if I sell it for $120,000 and you're into it for $190,000, right? There's a $30,000 split. We split it $15,000 a piece. So either way you can do it. First, you get an option. Option gives you the ability to market that property to the marketplace. If you send out a property to your list, or you market a property that you don't have an option on, you don't have equitable interest, and you could get in trouble by the Department of Real Estate for acting as a agent, right? Which you don't want to do. So now what happens is once you get a buyer, or I get a buyer that commits to that property, and they're going to commit to the property, then what they're going to do is now you're going to turn that option into a contract. And what they're going to do is now you have a contract on the property with a buyer with non-refundable deposit. Then you, since you're the one that has the property under contract, is going to essentially assign me a part of your deal for whatever percentage that we deem viable, whether it be the 50%, and we could do a 50% split on that particular deal. So you're going to assign me. So now I'm going to get paid out of escrow for the closing, right? We're not going to do a double escrow. We're a triple escrow or quadruple escrow. You know, I don't want double, triple, quadruple escrows on my deal, because I don't like doing double, triple. It just creates a big mess. They always go south when we have multiple different escrows. So what we do is assign ourselves on the contract. Once we have a contract with a buyer that's non-refundable, we'll assign ourselves onto the contract with the person under contract that we're doing a JV with. And now when we go to closing, we're both going to get checks out of escrow, out of title, out of the closing agent. There's going to be assigned to us. So that's the right way to do a JV deal. $100,000 budget. How much should I invest a month in marketing? Well, if you're a one-man show and you're doing everything yourself, then I would start with about $10,000. And then as soon as you start getting deals, you want to take, let's say you spend 10 grand and you make 15 grand. Then you want to start out with 15% and reinvest it back into marketing, and you want to scale it so where you're not using your money, your $100,000, you're using reinvested profits from the deals that you get. Do you mostly wholesale or do you owner finance? We do a split, pretty much 50% of each. We do a ton of owner finance deals because we can structure those very easily. No one really is doing it in our marketplace right now. It's a competitive advantage to go in and talk to a seller that owes 180 and the house is worth $200,000 and be able to get that property under contract and flip it and make $10,000 to $15,000 because of that competitive advantage. If we can go in and we can offer a higher price because they leave the existing loan in place and someone else comes in with a cash offer, I can beat them every single time. In addition to realtors, what would you recommend to finding people to boots on the ground? I honestly can tell you, I would just focus on realtors that are brand new, just getting in the business. Go to hudhomestore.com, go find a broker, and you can put in your city, you can go to your, put in your zip code, and it will give you all the brokers in your area. Call the brokers and say, hey, do you have any brand new real estate agents that I can work with? I'm building my business from afar, and I'd like to work with someone to help list and find properties for me and make offers on properties. So you want to do that, and if you find someone like that's probably the best way to do it, and here's why. Because they have an ethical obligation, and there's a code of ethics with a realtor, so you're not going to be worried about them going around you and stealing that deal. If they do, they could lose their license. So if you get another wholesaler, you get another friend, you get someone else, another buyer, there is a potential, if you don't know and trust them, that they could go around you and try to steal that deal. Is a low income, low credit list distressed? Not really. Not really. Now, if people are late on their mortgages, then possible, right? So you can do that. Dude, I don't care about people that put dumb stuff. It's part of the biz. Boom, boom. Thanks, Carlos. Carlos, you are fastly becoming a legend, and also I really like your marketing. So if you guys follow Carlos Reyes, he's in Phoenix, Arizona, another baller in the business, always crushing it. He has a whole business on cold calling. And those guys are out there crushing it, doing all sorts of stuff. But the cool thing is, here's what I talk about and what he's taken advantage of. And what's the next level? A lot of people have done that as well. You look at Scott Utz, you look at Max Maxwell, you look at Rafael Vargas, you look at Carlos, you look at Alex Sands. All these guys have become successful in wholesaling, and then has switched to influencing and training and education, which is phenomenal, because there's nothing better. It's great doing a wholesale deal and you make 50 grand on the deal. It's great. You're like, yeah, great. But you're really not impacting. You're only impacting the seller. Maybe you're impacting the buyer. Maybe if they're doing a fix and flip, you're impacting the neighborhood. But when you're going out and, Carlos has been responsible for helping a ton of people go out and become successful. I have, Max has, Rafael has, right? Scott Utz has. So when you do that, Joe Taylor has. So you have these people going out, now they're helping other people. You can literally turn it into another business, but it's actually more fulfilling than doing a big real estate deal, right? It is. It's more fulfilling helping someone, watching them go out, become successful, than it is doing your actually individual business. So one great thing that I love about this business is being able to transition your wholesaling business in your education, document what you're doing, and then literally you can turn and inspire and teach and train and make impact in people's lives. And here's the thing, everybody's different. He has a complete different style than I do. Right? I have a complete different style than Max Maxwell does, or Scott Utz, or we all have different styles, and we can attract different people to our collective education that we teach and do. But I can tell you, I never got into education when I started my podcast way back in 2010 for the intent to turn it into a business to generate revenue. I only did it because I wanted to impact people's lives in a positive way, and then it turned into a business, which has been phenomenal. But if you come with a premise, and you can turn around and turn that into a multi-million-dollar business, impacting, teaching people. Yeah, I was just up in Provo, Utah, talking to a group of brand new people that's never done a deal before. Well, we get them to break through, talk to sellers, get properties under contract, and within 2 days they left with properties under contract. Well, that's pretty amazing, and they were pretty excited about that. So, and the other thing too is other people look at other people as competitive. I don't look at it like that, because competition's irrelevant, right? If you are, follow God, and you realize that there is zero competition and there's more than enough, then you wouldn't have a scarcity mentality. If you have a scarcity mentality, you mean that there's not enough, right? And you believe there's not enough. And if you believe there's not enough, it's going to be very difficult. You just got home from the gym. Boom! You're right there. Mr. Vargas is on the line too, so he knows too. He's out there crushing it and doing deals. And when you do that, and then you're teaching other people. So it's cool, because Carlos has students, right, that follow him, that went out and has now had success. Now that can go out and spend time with their family. Now can go out and do amazing things, change their life, pay off debt, do some cool stuff. And make it happen. So, which is really cool. So, which is awesome in this business. So the bottom line is, let me see if I can get some other questions out here. Cool. That's awesome. Congratulations. Got your signs. Going to put those out. That's cool. Let me see if I can get some other, rehab tips. You want to talk about rehab tips? Well, let me answer that real quick. Rehab tips. Okay, here's my perspective on rehabs right now. Be very careful. We make sure with our stuff, the best marketing in the store, I'll tell you that in a second. When it comes to rehab, our worst case scenario, we have a spreadsheet that says worst case, most likely, optimistic, right? Our worst case scenario must be $100,000 or more, right, before we pull the trigger on the worst case. The problem is people are doing fix and flips, and they make their decision off an optimistic $20,000 spread. That's where you can get in big trouble, and you're going to get crushed. I take the worst case scenario. I do a $100,000 spread, and then I'll take down. I just took down a deal in Central Phoenix right now, another one, and we did a deal. And I usually do higher end type of homes, which tend to sit a little bit longer. If you do houses in Phoenix, $150,000, $200,000 or under, they're going to fly off the shelf. The one we just did, one of them we did this year, we bought for $300,000, put $150,000 into it, and sold it for $600,000. Huge profit, right? Gigantic, huge money. And it's a great deal. It gives my wife something to do. She loves doing renovations. The one we bought now, same type of thing. Bought it for $300,000. We'll probably sell it for $650,000, even $700,000. But we're going to put a bunch of money into it. Probably put about $200,000 into it. But on a worst case scenario, it's still the deal crushes in the marketplace. What mentor would you recommend in the Atlanta area? I would look up Anthony Epps. Anthony Epps. He's a stud. Really good dude. AZ a hot market? Very a hot market. And like I said, don't worry about competition. What's the best marketing to start with? Best marketing to start with is I would start with distress lists, pre-foreclosure, direct mail, RVM them, cold call them, voice broadcast them, and text them. Do all the above on those. Literally surround that seller with your message and be continuous on it, and you'll get some good deals. Is Spokane, Washington a good market? Yeah. There's distressed sellers in every single market across the country, right? So absolutely, I met a group, not a group, a couple kids. I think they were 19, 20 years old, out of a little town of 30,000 people that made $100,000 first year out of the gate. So absolutely, it's awesome. Let me see. This is a good question. What's the cheapest way to start the business? What's the cheapest way? So what can you do? you can get the pre-foreclosure list at flipmorehouses.com. You can get the pre-foreclosure list. You get that list. Now what you can do with that list is you can literally you can skip trace the list, get the phone numbers. You can do it through flipmorehouses.com. You can get the phone numbers, and what you can do is you can text them from your cell phone. You can cold call them from your cell phone, and you can handwrite letters from them, right? Yourself. And then you're going to go on appointments, and you can drive around and look for all the distressed properties around that area. And guess what you can do? You can search the information, find them, skip trace them, call them, text them, do the whole thing, and send them letters. So not only are you pulling, say, a list of pre-foreclosures, then you're driving around the neighborhood looking for the for sale by owners vacant properties and looking for rent signs. You're calling all those, and what you're doing is you're targeting those, and you're going out and you're being able to turn those into deals. That is a very, very small marketing budget that you can go out and you can start in the business and start seeing results fairly quickly. And you can go out and do that. And once you get a deal, then you reinvest 15% back in the marketing, and then that's how you start your scaling your business. If your marketing business lists are small, then remember, you got to hit all of them. You got to hit all the distress, right? You got to hit pre-foreclosure. You got to hit all the vacant properties. You got to hit with at least 50% equity. You got to hit the probate houses, the inherited houses, the property tax default, and you hit all those, right? So if you can hit code violations. So you want to have all, if your list is small, you have to get all the distress lists, which will basically increase that number. What exactly do you handwrite for a pre-foreclosure postcard? Dude, I don't even know how it can get you, you can do very simple, and you can do, oh, you follow your podcast on iTunes. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. You can write, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I'd like to buy your house on so-and-so address. Make it very simple. You're going to get a lot of calls because people are interested, but if you're focusing distress, you just want to get them to, respond. Which is more safe? The safest investing method, let me tell you this, the safest investing method right now is wholesaling houses. You wholesale houses, you take the excess cash and you put them into cash flow properties. Wholesaling houses, and you put them into cash flow properties, right? And then you make sure you get cash flow. We're about to open escrow on an $11 million apartment complex right now that produces 1 year out of the gate over $160,000 in cash flow first year right out of the gate. I have a code violation list in how should I cold call both. Here's the thing, when you cold call, do you hold on, someone asked a question. Do you recommend getting an LLC in your first deal? No, get your first deal first. Focus 100% on getting your first check, then go out and get your first deal. Get your LLC. So do that first, right? So code violation list, inheritance list. How should I cold call? Basically, you're calling up saying, "Hey, I'm buying houses in your neighborhood. Are you open to accepting a cash offer? Hello. Are you wholesaling? Are you open to accepting a cash offer?" And if they are, then say yeah. Then you say great. Tell me more about the property, and then now you're opening up the conversation with the seller to gather as much information as possible so you can make that offer. Can I tell you about multi-unit investing? That's a whole different stuff. I can tell you though, Extreme Freedom, I have my partner Corey Peterson's going to be there, and he's going to break down exactly how to do it with minimal cash and building partnerships. And it's called syndication, where you syndicate these deals. Syndication essentially means what you're doing is you're putting a property like this $11 million deal. We're going to get a loan on it for about 75 to 80% from Fannie Mae. And then what we're going to do is the balance, the equity, we're going to raise the equity by syndicating, meaning we're going to sell a portion of the LLC to raise capital. Okay, good. Listen, you cold call yesterday, messed up really bad. Don't get discouraged. See, listen, don't get discouraged. You're going to mess up. Do you realize that you're going to be better tomorrow than you are today? You're going to be better a week from now than you are today. The problem is people never get started, number one, or they get started and they mess up and they have a bad experience and they don't push through to learn to go out and do this business, right? If you spend the time and the energy and realize that, now it's funny because I was up in Utah, and in the Marine Corps, we would do something after a mission called an AAR. It's an after action report. AAR is an after action report. If you did an AAR after every day, after cold calling, an AAR essentially tells you, you basically define, you answer some specific questions. You say, hey, what was my mission? My mission was to cold call 100 people today, right? What was the result? Well, I only cold called 60 and I had, 10 people that told me to basically pound salt, right? F off. And then they say, okay, what could you do to get better? What could you do? What did you do great? And what could you do to get better? And if you say, listen, here's what I did great, and you identify what was great and what was awesome, maybe about a specific call, what could you do better? That's the key question, because now every day becomes a learning lesson, and you can do this after every appointment with a seller, and you can download and you can figure out what you do better. But guess what? If you realize what after every day you learn to get better, now instead of looking at the day as getting beat up as a failure, now you're looking at the day as a learning, and you're going to get progressively better in a very fast manner, in hyperspeed, because you're analyzing what you did great and you're looking at what you did wrong, and then you're being able to change it moving into the next day, and you can get better and better every single day. Now, every time I give like a keynote presentation or something like that, I go in and I have a mission at hand when I do a keynote. If I'm going to speak in front of 1,000 people, I do a keynote presentation, right? I want to go, here's my mission, here's what I want to accomplish out of here, here's the time frame I want to do it, and then after I'm done, I always go back and analyze what could I do better. And guess what? I'm going to get better and better and better and better on every single keynote that I do, because you can do that. Should I stay under 200,000 when pulling a list? Yeah, you should be way, 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 way under 200,000, because remember, you're hitting distress. If you got 200,000, then you're not targeting distress. You're targeting blanket, and now you got to narrow. You got to narrow that list. You got to narrow that list down to more of a targeted number. 200,000, unless you're going to cold call all of them, is done. Probably dumb question, but what is KPI? Key performance indicator. Key performance indicator. So there's 3 KPIs in the business. I mean, there's a bunch of KPIs, but the 3 biggest KPIs in our wholesaling business that pushes the lever most is the cost per lead. What is the total cost for a lead to generate an actual viable lead? Not a response, a viable lead. Number 2 is the conversion, which is how many leads it takes to get a contract, leads per contract. So if it takes you 10 leads to get a contract and each lead is $100, it's $1,000 per deal. And the third one's your average deal size. Your average deal size is the size of a deal. So if you know the average deal size, you know the cost per lead, and you know the conversion rate, on those numbers, you can predict income. Meaning, what if you want to make $500,000 a year and your average deal size $20,000, right? You need to do 100 deals, right? Is that right? 100, that's a lot. That's 2 million. get my numbers messed up. But anyways, so if you want to do $500,000, the average deal size, $20,000, right? You basically need what? 20 deals or more, 30 deals, right? To go out and make that happen. So 30 deals at $20,000 is $500,000. Well, how much is it going to cost you to get those 30 deals? Well, you got to turn around and you got to do, okay, well, and my average cost per lead is $100, and my conversion rate's 1 in 10. It's going to cost you $1,000 to get 30 deals. 30 times 1,000, that's $30,000 to make $500,000, right? And you can reverse engineer it down to how many leads. So how many leads do you need? Well, if it's going to 1 in 10, 30, you get 300 leads. 300 leads, right? Divided by, let's say, 365, and you only got to work 300 days a year. Well, you need a lead a day. A lead a day that you're going to go out and you're going to talk to and you're going to make an offer on, and you can turn that into revenue. Now, it's a very simplistic, easy manner with the numbers all screwed up, but the bottom line is that's how you use KPIs I actually have a spreadsheet I can go in. You can put your income, say I want to make $1 million, and it'll break down based upon those three KPIs and exactly how many leads you need a week to go out and get deals done. Yeah, cold calling is definitely a muscle. What do we have information about multi-family? I would suggest, if you want to learn information, check out Joe Fairless. Joe Fairless, Fairless. Joe Fairless. He has a podcast. It's phenomenal, and he actually wrote a book about apartment syndication. It's in Amazon. It's one of the best books I've read on apartment syndication. How many months? It took me 3 weeks of total, absolute baller focus to get my first deal. And I made $11,008 on my very first deal. I have an appointment today with a motivated seller. Can you explain how you can manage your appointment inside? Interesting. Actually, I have an entire course. It's called the 9-Step Seller Conversion Sequence. And the only reason I made that course was to onboard my sales reps. So I onboard my sales rep. I have them go through this entire course, the 9-Step Seller Conversion Sequence. And in that 9-Step Seller Conversion Sequence, it goes through the entire process of how to go out and do it. It's going to be... for me to explain it, it'd take me about 45 minutes to explain it and go through in detail exactly what it is. But the premise, let me give you the premise of it, is you've got to build a deep level of rapport, and you have to make a logical offer. A logical offer, you just can't pull a number out of an area. The offer has to make sense to a seller, if it makes sense. And then after you know it makes sense, right, to a seller, right, then you're going to have to ask a closing question. And a closing question is an alternate choice question, is the best one to use. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Seller. Would you like to close on Friday the 11th, or would you like to close on Monday the 13th, right? That's an example. And a closing question. You don't go, hey, do you want to do it? You don't do that, right? So if you build a deep level of rapport, you make a logical offer, and you ask the right closing question, that will turn into revenue. And realize that they're going to have an objection. If they're going to have an objection, then you can overcome that objection. All right, guys, I got a jet. I have been on here way too long. So, all right, I'll talk to you guys. Make sure you come back. Have an awesome day. God bless.